Hello, my name is John Barber. I am a faculty librarian at Lancaster University. I have been invited here today, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here to talk to you a little bit about something we focus quite heavily here on at Lancaster in the library, and that is teaching and encouraging staff, students and researchers to use highly sensitive search methods. A highly sensitive search method is a way of searching which retrieves the maximum amount of relevant papers when you're searching through a database. There is, unfortunately, a bit of a risk to this. What it does is it retrieves sometimes a few irrelevant papers, but the aim is to remove those papers through screening rather than a very, very complex search strategy. Other things it's very useful for are if you're producing systematic reviews. You should always produce a highly sensitive search strategy for a systematic review. Also, these search strategies are highly reproducible, which means they're easy to read and reproduce in the future. And they are a foundation of good evidence-based practice. So, over the next, I think, half hour, 25 minutes, I'm going to talk to you about these strategies and show you how we would do them. Sometimes I will be referring to other materials, and you'll be provided with a small sheet which will have any further links or further evidence. We try and base our search strategies wherever we can on previously published evidence, and this will make you a highly sensitive search strategy suitable for inclusion in systematic reviews or just for your own research. First thing you've got to do is consider where you're going to search. In our case, we have a really good guidance, and we'll give you a link to that in our Systematic Review LibGuide. So if I just go to our Systematic Review LibGuide, it's worth a read. It's very based on what we do here at Lancaster, but it is very, very useful in so much as it gives you a bit of a pathway to doing really good literature search. The first thing you really have to consider when you're doing your literature search has always got to be your databases and which databases you're going to choose. So in our case here, the ones you normally want to consider are always going to be these four: Medline with full text, CINAHL, PsycInfo. In our case, we also have a multidisciplinary database called Academic Search Ultimate. These all have their strengths and weaknesses. Medline with full text, with the one you've probably all seen from Pubmed. It's really good, it's really comprehensive. It has the most references to papers in, but it is very focused on general medicine. CINAHL is really good, that is a nursing database. If you're looking for anything nursing related or high quality qualitative research, CINAHL is a must search. We always recommend you do a search through CINAHL. PsycInfo is another excellent database to search through. PsycInfo is psychology and psychiatry. It's really good for qualitative research also. And if you're searching for any key terminology about people's feelings and opinions, PsycInfo is also really good. You might also want to consider searching through other additional databases. Other databases you might wish to choose are dependent on where you work in your institution. At Lancaster, we are quite well provided, so we have choices of multidisciplinary databases, such as Scopus or Web of Science. We also have business-focused databases. If you have a limited number of databases you have access to, we'd recommend considering a search through Embase. Embase is a very good database in health and medicine for providing you a really highly sensitive search. Unfortunately, the disadvantages with this search, it does give you a lot more papers to screen through, and it does introduce irrelevance into your search. So personally, if you can find a good multidisciplinary database, such as Scopus or Web of Science, search through that. But that is another topic entirely. And one thing I always recommend is you find yourself a librarian find yourself an information professional, ask them what their opinions are to the best databases, because they know what you have available and they can always get access to better databases. But we're going to do this search in a way that most people can follow. So we're going to search through Pubmed. So we all probably know how to get access to Pubmed. So there we go. Google Pubmed, there we go. So Pubmed is a publicly available version of Medline. Medline is slightly different, as in if I go to our databases and I access our Medline. This is our EBSCO Medline database. And here is Pubmed. You're searching through the same references. You're searching through the same abstracts. You're searching through the same papers, but with subtle differences. If you use this database, which is Medline with full text or Medline complete, this is provided by a company called EBSCO Host. This gives you your full text. This gives you access to many more papers. It also gives you access to extra operators, certain functionality, which you can use to make a really good search. Medline, when accessed through Pubmed, does not have as much functionality. It lacks some of the quality of life features you might hope to have, but it is actually more up to date. There's a lag between our EBSCO version and our Pubmed version. So Pubmed is a little bit more up to date. It also has pre-publication papers in it as well. So it can actually be a little bit more up to date. So although it's more difficult to do a highly sensitive search through Pubmed, it is actually a little bit more up to date. My recommendation is, if it is available, always choose the native interface. EBSCO, Ovid. Talk to your local information professionals, ask them to help you. But for our example, we are going to use Pubmed, because this will be a search that everybody can go home and do straight away. Now, it's time for us to start considering our search. But wait, it's always very exciting just to start searching. But we want to consider both the structure and the key terminology we're going to be searching. So what you can see behind me is a structured, highly sensitive search in an EBSCO database. EBSCO is quite good for this because it makes a highly sensitive search quite obvious. But what we can also do is do this through Pubmed. So as you can see, what we have there is we have three elements of the search. We have, the first one is solar panels. This search is all about solar panels, as we use for a good example. But if you notice, it's got a DE in front of it. That means it's a dictionary term. We have actually chosen this through one of our databases. We've gone through a list and we've found what is the general term which is used. In this case, for photovoltaic cells, it's solar panels. And then we've also added the or. That means solar panels or something else. So in this case, it's going to be or a search through the title for the word solar panels. In this case, it's quite a complex search, but you can make it as complex or as basic as you want. Also, we're doing a search through the abstract. So it will always have three elements: keyword, title, abstract. Key type, that's how I always remember it. So by doing these key type ab searches, you search through the keywords, which is where someone actually gone into a reference and actually tagged it. And then you're searching through the text of the title and the text of the abstract. This is enough to kind of rule of thumb get you around about 90% of the relevant papers through any one database. And if you ever look at a systematic review, they will always be searching multiple databases. And this is because no single systematic search is really effective enough to retrieve everything, but it's good enough. But what we want to do is repeat this search through Pubmed. So here we have Pubmed, but again, last wait. One thing we want to do is before we go and have a search, we want to cheat a little bit. We don't want to have to do this from the beginning. Why don't we look at someone else's search strategies? So what we can do is one of my favorite websites. I like to look at the ISSG Search Filters resource, see what's out there already. Usually these are much more study focused, but if you are, for instance, looking for systematic reviews, you'll find that pre-published protocols and search filters which have been done. So you can just use those as inspiration. My favorite way of doing this is just usually type the word search filters into Google. In this case, I'm going to have a look for some end-of-life search filters, something that will help us to produce a good systematic review search or highly sensitive search. So I've noticed that the very first development and validation search filters find articles on palliative care. Fantastic. So what we're going to do is have a look at that, read the search strategy, see if it inspires us, see what we actually have in there that might actually be very, very good. I'm not going to read it right now because we could review it, but I'd always recommend have a look at a few search strategy papers, try and see how they searched, what they searched, and then try and reproduce it, because that will help you a lot in producing a really good literature search. But what we're going to do is we're going to do a search now. We do end-of-life searches quite a lot. It's a common way of searching. There's a lot of people at Lancaster who are researching end-of-life subjects, so we do this quite a bit. So I might leap ahead a little bit with some of the search strategy. So what we want to do first is try and reproduce that key type app element. So as you noticed on Pubmed, there's nothing here jumping out of you, because remember I said you've got to look for some keywords. If you go down the bottom, here we go, mesh database. There is the element called mesh database down here. That is the keyword database in Medline. So if you click on that, there we go. What it does is it goes and creates, you gain a nice searchable list. So what we want to do is we want to see, let's have a look, see what subject terms they actually have in here. So what I'm going to do is do end of life. Okay, scroll it up, make it a little bit bigger so we can all see it. There we go, end of life. So if we scroll down now, so what is the terms it recommends we search? So here we go. So we've got death. Probably not relevant. But terminal care, that sounds much more relevant. So if you click on that, it might give us a little bit of info. Here we go. So, brilliant. So here we go. Entry terms. So care terminal. Okay. End of life care. That sounds very relevant. I think we're going to go for that. We're going to select that. So to select it, there we go. We choose add to search builder up here. There we go. Super. So we've got that now. So what it's done now is it said we've got terminal care as a mesh subject heading. Fantastic. Always go down here and check, okay, what else have we got? See also palliative care, hospice care. Actually, I'm going to have that. Okay. Yeah, I think that's relevant too, so I'll add that to the search builder. Okay. Here it's put and. We want to put that as or. Okay. So it's terminal care mesh or palliative care mesh. So let's see what else we've got here. So we've got palliative medicine. That's good. That's the search builder. On that again. You can manually edit these when you make a silly mistake. Sometimes you do. So there we go. So So Let's see, have we got everything now? I did see some other ones there. So palliative, I think I saw the word hospice. There we go, that could be quite good as well. I'm going to add hospice care there as well. And I'm going to add that to the search builder as well. Let's put loads of ors in there. The way it says we want or. There we go. Brilliant. So what we have there now, let's give this a few. There we go. Sometimes it gives us a few too many brackets. So we can remove those. There we go. The interfaces can be a little bit interesting sometimes and do some odd things, but fortunately these searches are reproducible, and so you can read them quite easily and see if it's done something odd. So what we have here is we've got terminal care subject term, or palliative care subject term, or palliative medicine, or hospice care. This seems to be, you know, I've gone through my system, I've looked at them, I've put in some other terms, I've seen what else is there. You know, I think pretty good. At some point you'll reach a point where you can't find any more, and so you're done, and then at that point you will move on. Now if I click search Pubmed, there we go. So what we have is we have terminal care mesh, or palliative care mesh, palliative medicine, or hospice care. That is searched for just the subject terms. I always recommend at this point having a Word document, copying it. Copy that to a Word document. If you do that, it will then, you'll save it, and you can then go back into Pubmed again, drop it straight in, and it will repeat the search for you. It's reproducible. So just save that bit and say, brilliant, that's the search I did for that. But we've not finished. We also have to search through the title and the abstract. So what we want to do now is go to the advanced search. Okay. So we get an option here to search, put another option in. In this case, we can search through title and abstract. Okay. So, and what we'll do now is we'll just search for free text. We're not going to be particularly exciting. We're going to put palliative. If I go for palliate star, that will also get the concept of palliative and palliative care, palliation, anything palliate star, or end of life. Okay. I've put end of life in quotation marks, so it won't get the word end on its own. It will just get wherever the phrase end of life exists. I'm also going to do end of life. Okay. Got that as well. I'm going to do or terminal care. You can just keep on going with this. Just add as many as you can. I always recommend spend a long time considering your search terms. You will discover your search will end up with a lot of really good search terms. And you can keep this yourself. Once you've done it once, you've got it in the bank. You can keep it for later searching. So I'm going to click add now. There you go. And it's automatically created a title abstract search with your search term. So if I click search, okay. And as you'll see, 108,000 papers, quite a few. So if we now go to our advanced search again, you will notice both our searches are down there. Ooh, scroll up a bit there. But notice the numbers are different. This is because we have done a specific search in two different ways. It's not a good search, neither is a very good search. So the first search here, someone has gone in for the titles and the abstracts of the papers and tagged them terminal care. This relies on the person knowing the subject well to be accurate. The second one has just searched for palliative care words in the title and the abstract. What this unfortunately again does is any paper which never mentions end-of-life care, but is actually about end-of-life care, you've actually lost that one as well. So the numbers will differ. What we want to do is add these together. What you can actually do with this is you can find functionality and you can click actions, and there's lots of different functions. But every database is different. My strong recommend is you get used to doing this one thing, which is where it says search 1 and 2. Go in the top, find a query book, and just put #1 and #2. That works in everything. You don't have to find special buttons, and it makes the searches very readable. So what that will do is actually add search 1 to search 2, and then provide you with only the papers which provide it. However, with this one, we don't want to add them together. What we want to do is we want all the papers which are in search 1 or all the papers in search 2. So we do or. Or makes the numbers bigger and makes them smaller. So what we're going to do now is search. Let's see what we get there. There we go. 158,000 papers. We look in advanced again. Let's have a look at our 3 different searches. So search 1 would have given you 105,000 papers. Search 2 would have given you 108,000 papers. The highly sensitive method of this searching has given you 158. So, rule of thumb, and a bit of a guess, you've lost about 40,000 papers not searching in this highly sensitive method. And that is it. However, it is a little bit too many. You don't want to start scrolling through looking for papers now. But this is where you introduce other concepts. First things first, my major concept is I'm going to say, okay, we've got this search now. I just want to search, for instance, a protocol, some sort of end-of-life protocols. That's going to be quite interesting. So what I can do is I can do another highly sensitive search. I might do this one a little bit quicker, but if you can follow along, just so we can save time to go into our other strategies. So if we go now to our search, I'm going to go back to our search again. Let's go to Pubmed. There we go. Okay. Let's go back to the beginning. The search will stay where it is. There's not to worry about it. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go to mesh. I'm going to put protocol in here. Let's see if there's a protocol there. Let's see. Clinical protocols. There we go. So I'm going to choose that. And I'm going to add a search builder. There we go. Click search. There we go. So 185,000. I'm going to go to my advanced search now. There it is. Title, abstract, protocol, star, protocol, protocols, or star, or pathways, star. Search. So there we go. So now we look at our advanced search. We have again subject term clinical protocols, as well as title abstract search for protocol or pathway. So again, I'm going to do hash or the £4 or £5. To add them together. There we go. So we have 158,000 papers about end-of-life care, and as you would expect, 2 million papers about protocols. What we need to do now is add these together. We only want papers which have both end-of-life and protocol, and that's where our and comes in. So if we do 3 and £6, that will add them together. And like I said, and will always give you less papers. 10,088. So we know that there's 10,000 papers which refer to protocols in these databases in Medline. Of course, you probably don't want that So we're going to artificially limit now. Normally we say with a really good search, don't artificially limit, but we're not doing a systematic review here. We're just doing a normal search. So you just want to see what's recently been produced. So you can go down here and we say, oh, what was in the last year? Fantastic. 646 results on protocols in the last year to do with end of life. That is what we actually call a screenable set. This you can screen through relatively quickly. So now we have produced a really good sensitive search. But our question now is our search good enough? Have we retrieved all of the papers that we feel our search should have included? Are we missing some papers? This is often a concern for researchers. But what you can do is you can actually do what we call a search strategy test. That is where you can test against, say, 5 or 6 papers that you already know of, that you feel are really, really high quality. To do a search strategy test, you pick your paper. In this case, I've already found one. New concepts in palliative care and the intensive care unit. So we want this paper. It doesn't necessarily mention protocols or pathways, but we know somewhere in it will be there. So this paper for me was what we call a clear include. This one we have to include in our work. So what we do to test this is we go back to our search, remove the filters. We've got a 1-year filter there, just clear that away. We don't want that. We want to search since about 1940. If we put the actual title of the paper in the field and we just choose title. Okay? Paper titles are quite unique. It's quite rare that you get multiple papers with the same title. And now if we click search, there we go. What it will do is it will show us the paper. It will also quite handily show us, for instance, any retractions or letters about the paper. Good way of knowing if the actual paper has been updated. So great, we know there's like 2 references to this. So now if we go back to click on advanced and have a look at our search, you notice it has an exclamation mark. Pubmed for some reason doesn't like us doing this. It works, but it always seems to go, what are you doing? Some databases are much more happy to do this. So now we've done that. So what we do, we want to double check. Okay? We don't want to search in the last year, okay? Because that was an artificial limit. What we want to do is we want to see 10,088. Was the paper somewhere in those 10,000 papers? It's a real time saver because you don't want to search through all those 10,000 papers. So to double check and to do a search strategy test, we're going to do #7 and #9 here. Okay. If the papers remain, they do, that means that that paper was included in your 10,000. Fantastic. That search was good enough. Do this to say 5 or 6 papers. You can even write this down and say, this is my gold standard search strategy test. Set. And if you retrieve all of them, you can be quite confident that your search is good. If, for instance, it doesn't retrieve a paper, go into the title and abstract, have a look why. What was the terms and the word that was missing? What was the terminology which wasn't there? And then amend your search to include that search term and it will retrieve that paper. But it won't just only retrieve that paper. It might retrieve 10 or 15 more highly relevant papers. So search strategy testing is a fantastic way of ensuring that your search is good and also growing your search to make it as sensitive as possible. My other top tip, we get 2 top tips for today, will be actually screening. What you want to do now is actually, all those 646 papers are probably really good. You want to look through them. But what you don't want to do, unfortunately, is go through it on the website. It's long-winded, it's annoying. You don't know what it is, you have to pick and choose. Oh, I'll choose those. And picking and choosing papers is actually a bad idea. What you want to do is actually select via exclusion. You want to exclude papers that are not relevant rather than including ones which are relevant. It's a bit like going to the shops. You know, I'm a person who does like a fancy pair of shoes. I might not choose the most relevant or suitable shoes, the best ones, but I'll choose the nicest looking pair. And it's the same with this. You'll choose the nicest looking papers. It's easier to exclude than it is to include. So what we want to do is export this into screening software. In this case, we're going to use software called RESPACC. Okay. Again, RESPACC is used specifically for systematic reviews, but it's really useful for any screening of papers. So what we want to do is create a new review, and I'm going to call it review of palliative. I'm going to put some info in there. RESPACC is free to use. There are extra paid for features now, but generally it is free for you to use as an individual. I'm going to create a nice review there. Okay. There we go. So now what we need to do is actually get our files into this to start screening. As you can see, option select files there. It wants us to import something. If you look down here, it's got lots of different formats depending on the system you're using, but we want to use Pubmed. So the way that we're getting out of Pubmed, and unfortunately this does change a lot, is what we want to do is we want to get 646 results into there. So what we're going to do is choose save. Okay. All results, please. There we go. And we're going to choose Pubmed. That seems to work at the moment. Sometimes it changes, so this might not be valid in a couple of years' time. But at the moment, this seems to go and get your results in quite nicely. So create file. There we go. And what it will do is, if you look down here, there we go. It has downloaded the file for us. There we go. Fantastic. So what we'll now do is we'll go to RESPACC and we'll click select files. Okay. There it is. You can't quite see, unfortunately, but I'm just choosing the file. There we go. So I've selected my file here and I've imported it from wherever it's been saved. So now if I click continue, it will import them all. Wait a little bit. The numbers will be a little bit odd to start with. You'll get 400 here, 600 here, but just wait until all the importing's changed. Stop. So there we go. So it's 646 here. It is quite a new resource. So sometimes there's more things. It says undecided up here, 400. Like, actually, that's not right. If you just refresh the page, it will actually give you the right numbers. So super. What we now have here is RESPACC. And instead of picking and choosing and saying, I want this paper, I want this paper, what we can do is we can say, actually, okay, I'm going to exclude that. I'm going to say the reason was it was, let me just say, too old. Old. Okay. There we go. So what you can do is go down the whole list, exclude, exclude, include. Okay. Yep, that's really good. I like that one. I like that one. Okay. And then you can include the ones and exclude the ones you don't want. And this is a really good way of going through your results in a much more systematic manner. And once you've gone through all your list, include, exclude, exclude, exclude. Put another reason there. Let me just say not nice. There we go. Another nice reason there. Very useful if you want to know why you're excluding them. And then once you've gone through your whole list, you then will have included. In this case, I chose 3 to include, and this would be for the paper I wrote. And what you can do now is you can then export. If you export, okay, you're filtered in a different format. You've got EndNote, you've got comma-separated values, and RefMan for different reference management softwares such as Mendeley and EndNote. And then you can export this, and it will bring it into your software. Not all your references, but just the ones you want to use for paper. We are now at the end of my presentation on highly sensitive search strategy. Hopefully you may have taken something away from this, maybe learned a few new tips and tricks on how to search Pubmed in a highly sensitive manner. If you are interested in learning more, please follow me on Twitter. I'm always tweeting new and interesting evidence to help improve the literature search process. And have a look at our systematic review LibGuide. It's not just for systematic reviews, but has great evidence for systematic searching in general. Again, many thanks for the time you've taken listening to me. I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful rest of your conference.